Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Rick Ackerman, editor of the newsletter Rick's Picks, his website rickackerman.com. Welcome back to the show, Rick.
Always a pleasure, Jim. I appreciate your inviting me on.
Rick, taking a look at the stock market boards today, everything is in deep red, but you were saying it's not as bad as it looks. What's your indicator on the health of the stock markets?
I think it's no more complicated, Jim, than just watching Apple. Everybody, you can talk about this factor influencing the market, influencing the market or that, but it's all just Apple. Apple really reflects the preference of money managers, portfolio managers, who've done nothing but make money with Apple for years. It's really a complete no-brainer, and it's worked for them. And until the day comes when they wake up and say, that's it, I'm dumping Apple, which of course raises the question, dumping it on whom? This market will continue to either rise or certainly hold its own.
Does it matter if Apple has a hot new product or not?
No. Now, it's irrelevant what Apple sells or even how much of it sells. The company is about as innovative as Disney, you know, and just to show you how completely bereft of ideas they are, they've floated getting into the driverless car business and this business and that business, but basically they're in the business of adding some marginal change to the camera in iPhones to keep selling lots of smartphones. So it doesn't matter what they sell or what they do or even how much money they make.
Yeah, because of course with Apple, every time you get a new Apple phone or a new model of it, you have to get a different charging cord, and the European Union has said that's nonsense. Let's come up with a common charging cord for all phones. And I don't think Apple likes that at all.
Yeah, they obviously do a lot of business. I think that Apple has always been particularly vulnerable in a recession because the products are all so overpriced, and they sell mainly to cult buyers. It's a big cult for sure, but I think they'd be very susceptible to a severe retail downturn in any kind of general economic downturn.
Sure, so many people feel their products are overpriced, but the fans of them are willing to buy them, it seems, at any price. I mean, what other manufacturer sees people line up around the block at 5 a.m. to buy a new model of something that's existed for now 20 years.
Right. I mean, I tend to keep everything until it just wears out. And I discovered I was a BMW driver in the 60s, and that car practically needed to be overhauled every 8,000 miles for a service interval. But when I bought my first Japanese car, a Honda, I was awed. It was just, put a little water in the battery every 50,000 miles and it runs just fine.
Yeah, I know. I ran my Honda Accord literally into the ground when I traded it in. They said, it doesn't go in reverse. I said, yeah, I know. I mean, everything was worn out in that car, but I really enjoyed it. And, and there were features in that 1979 Accord they still don't have in cars today. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I've got my second car is a 22-year-old Lexus SUV, and the only thing I've had to replace over the years was the door lock actuators. It used to be an $800 job per door when you did it with the OEM part through a dealer, but the Chinese, God bless them, came up with door lock actuators that you could buy for $12. So, I'll just keep the car forever.
Sure. And when my wife whacked the mirror off our Acura, she went and bought the kit. You know, it was like, I don't know, $600 at the auto shop to replace it and install a new one. She bought the kit online and installed it herself for $60.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah. So, there's lots of workarounds, but nowadays you're mentioning auto parts. I need a new headlight bulb. They put one in that's a different color, and they said they would call me when the new one came in, and that was back in August. How bad is the shortage of parts and chips hurting the auto business?
It must be devastating. I mean, I know people who have been in for collision damage with high-end cars, Mercedes-Benzes, BMWs, and they get this, well, it's going to be a couple months before this particular chip or that comes in. One of them's driving a high-end Bimmer that gives her false readings. It says the tires are low and she's running out of gas when she's really not. So the chips have gone berserk, and of course, even though the manufacturers have all these new gewgaws in the cars that are good, it's nice to have some of these amenities. They're at the mercy of the chip makers.
And I've heard people become addicted to things like heated steering wheels and are disappointed that A, they can't get a new car, and B, they can't get a new car that has a thing like a heated steering wheel. I know you don't need them in Florida, but in a place like Minnesota or Chicago where they get real winters, maybe a warm steering wheel is a nice thing to have.
Yeah, we have plenty of that. Down here in Florida, without the chip, you can get your steering wheel up to 150 degrees.
So you have air-conditioned steering wheels.
Yeah, that's what we need. You really need to put the car in the garage here when it gets hot.
Yeah, I know my friends in Vegas have oven mitts in the car because the steering wheel's too hard to hold when they get in it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so with this chip shortage, auto dealers really must be suffering, and when they do get orders, they tell people it's months away if it ever shows up. Is there going to be a time when these dealerships actually go under and you're going to have to order directly from the factory like you do with Tesla right now?
Well, it seems like the chip shortages are reshaping the car business, and I saw something upbeat on earnings for GM and Ford, but you wouldn't know upbeat if you looked at the charts, really. GM is GM's, I guess, doing okay. It's cruising, it's been cruising for a year at a relatively high altitude, but it's amazing to me that the stock market has anything to celebrate at all when such a key industry as the global auto industry is under such hardship right now.
Now, is there a disconnect between the stock market and the actual U.S. economy? According to government figures, GDP went up substantially in the last quarter.
Yeah, and I don't really know. For as far as I can tell, GDP means that they weight stock market prices as 2/3 of that or something. I don't know. Just when you look around, really, you see the failure at the grassroots level of millions of businesses in this country. Just go to California if you want to see it. And you always hear that America's economy really runs on the strength of its small businesses, that collectively they account for much more than the mega companies. But if that's true, we've seen so many small firms go under during the pandemic, especially in travel and entertainment. So I don't know. I guess the longer I live and observe the markets, they just always seem to have been disconnected from reality.
The Vancouver suburb I live in, New Westminster, is known for its bridal shops, as in wedding gowns and tuxedos and so on. And they're going under because people still aren't allowed to have big weddings. And if you're not going to have a big wedding, why do you need a $2,000 wedding gown? And right. It's very sad to see all these boarded up windows that used to have all these wedding displays.
Yeah, and it's tough on the planners too. A friend of mine has been planning her daughter's wedding, big wedding, for the last few years, and it was postponed because of COVID. And now I guess when she sort of cranked up the planning effort when the COVID seemed to be dying out, and then Omicron came along. So it's like you fix these dates and you just cross your fingers and hope everything happens. I've still got a reservation for for a hotel for my 50th college reunion, in June, but it's already been postponed once, and you never know.
Which college?
University of Virginia, in Charlottesville. And they had a virtual reunion online, but obviously that leaves something to be desired.
We'll have more with Rick Ackerman right after this.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Rick Ackerman. Rick, the price of oil continues to climb. Do you have any idea why?
Yeah, it's crazy, really. I mean, it has to be either supply or demand, and I can't. The demand thing it's just not there. I think that manufacturing is not going so great guns that we should have a resurgent demand for crude. So I guess you have to make the case that the demand side has been so threatening that this supplier of crude will be somehow diminished, that supply problems are what's causing it. But I can't really see crude going as high as it's going already. And my projection is up from here. The March crude's currently at about $88, $89, but I'm using a 105 target, and some other gurus I know are shooting much higher. One of them, I think, has a target of just over $200 a barrel. And I can't fathom what that's all about. When you try to imagine what the world's going to look like with crude at that level, it's hard to imagine, really.
Well, in Vancouver, we're creeping closer and closer to $2 a liter. So just take $2 times 3.8, and that'll give you the U.S. gallon price in Canada. In other words, it's in Vancouver very expensive. But of course, here the biggest cost is taxes. For example, the local transit authority skims 18.5 cents out of that liter of gas in tax, and then the federal government puts an excess tax on gasoline, even though they promised they wouldn't tax a tax. They tax a provincial tax. So, and then Prime Minister Trudeau's in love with carbon taxes, so he keeps upping his carbon tax and adding new ones as well. So Canadians don't just pay the market value for gasoline. It's a huge cash cow for government. And you wonder what they're going to do when electric cars become more popular. Obviously, they're going to charge you per kilometer because you're not using gasoline anymore. And if they transfer that cost to electricity, you won't be able to afford to heat your home or light it or, turn on the stove to make dinner.
Yeah, that's a problem. We're being encouraged to think that electric vehicles run for free because you can go to many places and charge up at no cost, the cost being borne by the larger community of motorists who drive gas-powered vehicles. But at some point, we're going to have to reckon with the actual cost, not only of providing power to electric vehicles in some way, and we know it's not nuclear, but also the cost of disposing of batteries and things like that. It's free power turns out to be not so cheap after all.
Well, I was just seeing a report on Bloomberg that said we're going to need as much copper in the next 25 years as the amount that humanity has used through its entire history. We'll need more than that because we'll have to have more power transmission lines. And, of course, an EV uses a tremendous amount of copper to wrap the coils to make the electric engines.
There, you can always hope for some sort of breakthrough. There are some very promising things related to graphene, for one. It's a very good conductor, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see a paradigm shift there that might let's say, undermine the very strong market for copper. Copper sort of, the big moves are often centered on the big stories. And years ago, the story for copper going to unimaginable depths per pound was that all of in the U.S. and in the West, we developed a telecommunication system that used a lot of copper wire, but that whole stage of development would be avoided in third world countries or in developing countries in Africa, developing continents like Africa, where they would bypass copper and simply go toward other means of transmitting power.
Now, the Chinese home market seems to be collapsing. Evergrande started it, which Evergrande sounds very much like the world's largest Ponzi scheme. Is that going to spread to North America, do you think?
It will. We've had no matter how big the story and how threatening, it eventually drops off the front page, and of course Evergrande did. But it's like years ago, Portugal and Spain and Europe's problems used to come and go depending on what the news cycle brought as alternatives. So we're in a cycle where the news doesn't exactly reflect reality, but it reflects just the passing interest of the moment.
Rick, anything else we should be keeping an eye on right now?
Well, I would say I was among a gaggle of gurus who said that it's over, the bull market is over, but I am fixated on Apple. As I mentioned, it's the only stock you got to watch, and it's close enough to the old high at 182 to suggest that old high is magnetic, that it's going to draw Apple higher, and that the bull market will continue as long as Apple is not imploding. So I guess like so many other guys in my trade, I was a bit premature, but I'm still open to the possibility that we're in a topping process. A lot of stocks are manifesting these head and shoulders patterns, bearish patterns, and it's something to keep an eye on.
Rick, thank you so much for chatting with us.
And thank you, Jim, for inviting me on. It's always a pleasure.
My guest has been Rick Ackerman, editor of the newsletter Rick's Picks, his website, rickackerman.com. If you have any questions for Rick, you can send them to info@howstreet.com, and we'll ask that question for you. Our YouTube channel, Talk Digital Network. You can find us on Twitter @HowStreet. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.